Hey everyone, and welcome to the Oaks Countdown on DRFTV. Nicole, Russo, and Dan Illman ready to take you through the final countdown to the 150th Kentucky Oaks, now just under 8 weeks away. And these last weeks are really going to be crucial as we head into the major point prep races, as a lot has changed with this filly division. To illustrate that, we'll take a look at the result from last November's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, where, just FYI, held off Jody's Pride to earn her championship. We'll discuss them both a little more in depth in a moment, but right now take a look at some of the other names in that field, including some fillies who were Grade 1 winners at that point. And now, in contrast, we'll look at the current point standings toward the 14-horse Oaks field, and you'll see some very different names here as other fillies have stepped forward, Dan.
You're absolutely right, Nicole, whether it's through injury or bad luck or the fact that some of these two-year-old fillies might not have matured as much as some of the horses on this current list we're looking at right now. It is a bit of a different list. Tamara, of course, went into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies as the odds-on favorite. She disappointed, came out of that race with an injury, and will miss the Oaks. Just FYI, we were talking about how good was she last year at two, an unbeaten champion two-year-old filly. She missed her seasonal debut with a temperature, and Candied, who was third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, just back on the work tab. A little bit of a late start for her, but I won't be surprised if we see her in a points race.
Especially in something like the Ashland at Keeneland, where she's already won her Grade 1. But for now, let's take a closer look back at that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. And for the top two here, it's been a tale of two scenarios, starting with Just FYI, who, as you referenced, won this to remain unbeaten on the season and lock up an Eclipse Award championship. And she was expected, as you said, to make her 3-year-old debut earlier this month in the Devona Dale, but was scratched the day of the race with a fever. Trainer Bill Mott still on record telling our colleague David Grunning that he's still hopeful she can make the Kentucky Oaks, but obviously there's concern over the amount of time they've got left to prepare her and get that prep in.
It's a huge concern. If anyone can go to Plan B, however, and succeed, it's the great Bill Mott. You have to realize, friends, that after the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, I'm sure the day afterwards or so, Bill Mott began plotting the season and getting ready for the Kentucky Oaks with Just FYI. And missing a prep race is not easy. Any sort of setback is not easy. Just FYI has shown nothing but talent in her career, but she's behind the 8 ball a bit with some other very talented fillies on this list.
Yeah, and we've seen fillies have a setback or have a change of plans in recent years and come through in the Oaks. Serengeti Empress bled badly and was vanned off at the fairgrounds in her final prep before coming back to win the 2019 Oaks. Malatha had her prep plans changed by the death of her owner, and then had just one prep race, winning the Ashland before taking the 2022 Oaks. So, some very special fillies on that list. Just FYI would need to be a cut above and beyond to join them.
I agree with you, but Jody's Pride, conversely, everything seems to be going right for her connections. Not only did she run so well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, we saw her just miss another stride or two, maybe she gets there, but she came back with a really nice victory in her seasonal debut. It was a promising performance, and it looks like she's on her way to the Gazelle at Aqueduct.
Yeah, I think definitely very promising, for Jody's Pride. Rounded out a Triple Crown exacta at the Breeders' Cup. She's by American Pharoah, while Just FYI by fellow Triple Crown winner Justify. So that's really kind of a lot of fun to see. Jody's Pride improved to 3-for-4 lifetime with that win in her 3-year-old debut, the Busher, which we'll watch now. I think she'll have to prove herself against some tougher company moving forward. Not really sure what was in the Busher, not really sure who's going to be in the Gazelle. I'd like to see, some more strong performances on some different fast tracks for her, but this was surely a strong start to her campaign and leaves her a lot of room to move forward.
I agree. It was a testing track, to be sure. As you can see, a sealed, sloppy surface. She had to go a mile off of the layoff. She had to stay within range of a pretty fleet filly who we see on our Kentucky Oaks points leaderboard, that being Carmelina, and she readily ran on by. The connections have to be pleased because I don't think she had to go to the bottom of the well in that race. I think she can move forward off of that seasonal debut in the Gazelle, and we'll see about a mile and an eighth from a pedigree standpoint. I don't think that'll be an issue. I think the Gazelle is a really good spot for her. She has to improve from a Buyer speed figures standpoint. Right now, it seems like the fillies down at the fairgrounds have the edge, but Jody's Pride, she's a neck away from being unbeaten and a neck away from being a champion.
Yeah, and she strikes me as a really workman-like filly who just kind of does what she has to do to get the job done. So I think when faced with stronger opponents, there's probably room for improvement on that speed figure scale. But we'll see what's ahead for Jody's Pride and just FYI in the coming weeks, as this week really the calm before the storm, as at the end of this month, things kick into high gear with this final series of Oaks preps. The majority of the races on this schedule award 100 points to the winner. They're essentially win and you're in for the Kentucky Oaks. The hefty point value for second or even for third or fourth, if you already have some points, should put you in as well. So here's where the picture is really going to start to crystallize in these coming weeks.
You're absolutely right. The Grade 2 Fairgrounds Oaks on March 23rd. I really think that's going to be a key prep for this year's Kentucky Oaks, with horses like Tarifa and Intricate coming off a 1-2 finish in the Rachel Alexandra, both with very impressive Buyers speed figures. We'll see if Just FYI is ready to go in a race like the Gulfstream Park Oaks the following week. And at Oaklawn Park right now, I'd be very curious to see if Lemon Muffin is for real for Mr. Lucas. Winning the Honeybee as a maiden at a big price last time out, it would be nice to see Wayne Lucas back in the Kentucky Oaks with a nice filly.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, next week's Fairgrounds Oaks really coming up strong, and that's been such a productive prep series, including just last year's Oaks winner and champion Pretty Mischievous came out of that series. We'll take a look at this year's Fairgrounds Oaks field and more next week as we heat up on the Oaks Countdown.